up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse. This is not a freak off. This is State of the Game. I am Dan O, and my whispering is just a little is just light, loud talking. So that's where I'm and my co-host every week put okay, he put his foot down, cracked his neck, and he said, "Look, you introduced me as the vivacious K Diggy." And I said,
Oh,
"No
I like
problem,
that.
sir. The vivacious K Diggy it is." Thank you for joining me every week.
Yeah, man.
We're doing it, and we have somebody with us today who has done it all. You know, done it all. Look, we produces, writes, interviews, parties with Kesha. We're talking about SonRaw. Thank you. One of the only people in this game that I've bought comic books with. Thank you. Thank you for
This that is surprising though, just because like the comic book rap fraternity goes so deep.
that's true. That's true. The thing is, yeah, and it's really like I'm in Maine, so I'm not near anybody. You know what I mean? Like I'm not in New York hanging out with all the cool guys. Like I'm just
I'm not gonna take over the podcast and turn this into an absolute Batman chat, but because that shit was fire.
yeah, I've heard it's crazy. I've heard it's good, man. I gotta get back in the game. Um absolute Batman. I'll look that up. We're here to talk. We got an interesting topic here that and I'm wrestling with. Is we're talking about the year in rapping for Alchemist, right?
Mm,
He's released two projects this year that were very rap forward, right?
yeah.
And I'm sitting with it like, wow, because it's a very unique position. I was thinking about this today, Kate. Most of the rappers, when you talk about who are the best rappers that produce, right? Most of
Yeah.
the names you're going to give are people who rapped and produced from the beginning, right?
Mm.
Hi, I'm DJ Quick. I rap and I produce, right? Um, it's a trickier thing to get known for your producing and then trickle the rapping in.
I think one of the there's like an interesting distinction between like a rapping producer, if you're like a producer who raps,
Yep.
versus if you're an MC who makes beats. And it's technically the same thing, but it we kind of view those two things as separate. And like you have people that really blur the line, like is Q-Tip like a producer first or an MC first? And it's like he's really good at both.
Right.
Pete Rock, you're like, okay, no, that's a producer first. What about Large Professor? Kind of hard to tell. No pun intended. Um, so with Al, I definitely view him as a producer first, even though he had that Hooligans album out when he was a kid. Uh, I view him as a producer who raps, but that's not me throwing shade on him. I'm a producer who can't rap, so he wins by default. And he's actually good at rapping, but it's clearly the second skill set, maybe even the third because he DJs too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's so it's interesting and it's trickier because you have an audience already, right? He has an audience already that wants a thing from him. You know what I mean? And he's walking. It's almost like he's IHOP, and the people walk in, and he's like, "You want a sloppy Joe?"
Mm.
And they're like, "No, man, I wanted pancakes. Like, what's up?" Um,
So he's like this year in particular, because he had all of the like complex producer of the year things
yep.
over the past few years. He's had like this run like in underground hip hop, but he transcends, kind of that lane in a way where he's moving more units than other people. He's like reliably moving stuff. So I feel that like that gives you the confidence to maybe put, puff your chest out a little bit and like, hey, maybe I will do this rapping shit a little bit more. Not so much in terms of the Gangrene, which I'm sure he was going to do anyway, because like that's family for him.
Right.
But to put out like the genuine articulate, which is maybe more of a like a risk.
And it's weird because, like, in actuality, the Gangrene album is much longer,
Yes.
right? There's a lot more going into Heads I Win, Tails You Lose in terms of like, was it? It's 39 minutes, 18 seconds.
I mean, like cards on the table.
Yeah.
I like the Gangrene album more than the solo joint, the genuine articulate. That's my
Yeah.
taste
Yeah.
reacting to it. But I think to me, it's because I mean, what they've always done with Gangrene, because we got to give Oh No all of his
Right.
flowers as
Right.
well. 50% of the beats, 50% of the rhymes, give or take on any album. Like they fit in, like I call it like I wrote about it like a few months ago, like almost like the Children of Ultramag, where it's like that lineage of rap that's just trying to be as bugged out as possible, like from Ultramag to like Redman to like even Cool Keith's West Coast backpacky late 90s stuff. And that kind of ties in like I almost feel like Dilated, which I was really down with originally, that was kind of a cleaned up version of that.
Oh, okay.
With Gangrene, you're getting that like there is a dark side, Red Man, like I'm gonna say some
Yeah.
filthy, as opposed to being gangster, it's just like some dusted b-boy shit.
Yeah, it's very Def Squad energy
Yeah.
to what's going on, headbangers stuff. I
Or
think
even come on flow where
yeah.
you got like that, like I'm super underground, I'm rapping like a future backpacker because I don't expect to be like back in the day on BT, or I don't expect to be on TikTok with this music.
Yeah, and maybe Heads I Win, Tails You Lose is like their Def Jux thing, right?
I
Uh
kind of
yeah. The Genuine Articulate is 22 minutes long, by the way. It's so that's when I talk about 17 minutes less time. So to you calling it like less of your thing or less of a risk is interesting because, and I think you're right, but I think it's interesting because it's like Gangrene is actually longer, but it's established, right? And while the thing Gangrene always reminds me of um is Nerd,
mm,
because
Nerdy.
like Nerd was a dumping ground for the ideas that were too weird for everybody else.
yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
Because Pharrell has like multitudes, right? Like Pharrell and Chad, they have multitudes, and
Right.
they have shit that people are just not going to pick to deal with.
That, and I think production wise, at that time they had created so much goodwill that no one's going to look at an NERD project and judge it like harshly.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
because I mean, at that time the Neptunes were all everywhere, so you can't look at you can't look at their production discography and then look down upon NERD.
I mean, I remember. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of depends which era of NERD. Also, like the first album, I remember it was like a big deal because you had the European version, which was all synthy stuff, which I love.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then when the American version came out and it was kind of pop punky, I didn't. I'll fully admit, I didn't understand that. I was like, I was too used to my bootleg MP3 copy. Like I read about it in I don't know if it was Spin or some other magazine back in the day, and I was like, "Yo, I like this new wave stuff." And then there's like all of a sudden it was like some 41, and I was like, I don't know what this like. I wasn't ready for that.
Right. But I think it was, but that was why they did it, right? Because it became this safe place for these wild ideas, you know? Um, and I think Gangrene is like that for Al.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's interesting because he works with such a wide variety of MCs where like I'm thinking, I don't know what is like I don't know what the risk is for him now. Like I feel the risk was more 10 years ago because this style, like there was the first few Gangrene albums, but I don't know if you remember the Greenberg EP.
Yes, yes, I remember.
To me, like a big part of Al rapping today, like when he kind of did his, kind of came back with this current style, he owes a lot to rock and to
Mm.
that Greenberg project where because he was on like that shit like you know after Marsburg, and it took everybody else like till Griselda to really catch on to like the drumless, like all the shit that Rock and Cod did. Al was kind of the first one of that earlier generation to say, hey, wait a minute, this is really good. I want to kind of get involved, in this style. And it's kind of carried over until today. And now that style being bigger than it ever was, he can move more units and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but and he's kind of and so he's been in and out of the rapping
Yeah.
like it's not like he does this constantly, right? Like he's taken years off of like not of just like it's or sometimes he'll throw a loose verse somewhere um on somebody's album. But I rumblings, I put this in breakdown that like Larry June had really put the battery in his back to start rapping more.
Yeah, I saw that in the show notes that you
Yeah.
kindly sent over. I mean, I believe it. I really liked I really, really liked his contribution to what was it, 40, was it 60 days or 40 days, the song last
Yeah, I
year?
think 60 days. Yeah.
60 days. I really liked what he did on that one. So if it came out of those sessions, I wouldn't be surprised just because, knowing Larry June's whole persona of being like this motivational, figure, I could see how hanging around him, like he might put the battery in your back.
Right. And I want to say, like, I'm not like I know rappers who loves the way Alchemist raps.
Mm.
Like real spitters who are like, I study Alchemist and how he raps. Or this person sounds like Alchemist. And I'm like, really? Like, um, so
I mean,
I know people that hold him in regard, high regard.
to me, it's not like I want to listen to Al rap all the time, but he hits this like he's almost like the anti-Tupac, where Tupac like it's all charisma and emotion and his story and how his story
Right.
related to other people in his position of his generation when he was writing. Like you were invested into Tupac Shakur, the man behind the records. With Al, that's not really how I relate to him. He's like really technical and saying wild shit. And as a rap fan, I'm like admiring the rapping on a technical level. I'm not like thinking, oh man, I really relate to the Alchemist story. I mean, I'm not from Beverly Hills for one thing, so that's an interesting,
Right.
you know, I think he knows where his strengths are, and he's also aware of like, his limitations, and he operates really smartly in that space. And I think that's being a producer and producing other artists and knowing what they sound good at. He can maybe take a look at his own vocals and figure out what works for him.
Yeah, I think it's and so the Tupac thing was it was an interesting call out because like if you like I was thinking about Can You Get Away off
Mm.
Me Against the World, right? Because
Yes.
it's like it's one of the
Oh,
most interesting songs I think in hip hop because it is about not just hitting on a girl, but hitting on a girl who's in an abusive relationship, trying to get her out
a
of the abuse.
wild thing to do.
And I've seen it done. Uh, and,
It takes a lot of game to pull that off and to not fuck
and for
that.
him to be like, look, I see you and I see what you're going through, and you need to leave this dude. Um,
And
and
also can't hit that.
and so, but like, yeah, the technicalities of the rhyme scheme are not the star in that. It's the story itself, right?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily his story. The same way Brenda's Got a Baby is not necessarily
Right.
his story, but he could tell the story,
Yes.
right? Even he pour out a little liquor or whatever, like he could tell the story
He
of what
can
he was
make you
doing.
feel a way and control that emotion.
Yeah. If you make your music a movie, Tupac was a director, writer, like he could cast everybody, he could do everything there. But like that isn't really happening with Alchemist. Alchemist is like, cracking your skull like chicken shell.
Yeah.
He's having a ball. Um,
He's talking about the various diseases you'll catch, like if you encounter him and shit. Like,
right,
yeah, it's like there's room in rap for both of those approaches.
sure.
One will make you into a generational icon. The other one is like a cool kind of almost like I remember seeing an interview with Al, and like one of the things he said is he always tries to have like multiple revenue streams. So he might be producing a single for ASAP Rocky and J. Cole. That's one revenue stream. He might
Right.
be producing a whole album for Larry June. That's another one. He might be doing shows. He might put out a rap album himself. And so, like, I just feel that it's one of the many things in his bag of tricks.
Mhm.
And because he's not, it doesn't need to be 100% of his career, it allows him to go left when he needs to.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And but I think the genuine articulate is important to me because it does step outside of that.
Yeah.
And the songs do get conceptual a little bit. They do, it does become like a journey somewhere. Yeah.
Well, especially the last song, which is an openly emotional song, which I'm gonna be like I am like the child free dude.
Right.
So it doesn't hit me on the same emotional level that it might to someone who is a father. And I respect that because I like dance music and I've played some for people who can't dance. And it's just like it doesn't relate to their situation. And like it doesn't mean the song that I was playing them was bad. It means they wasn't for them and vice versa.
Right. Right.
To me, like hearing the genuine article, it kind of reminded me of Haley's song by Eminem or the one that Nas did about Destiny on, I think it was Street's Disciple. Like you get one if you're like a rapper and you have a kid, you get your one song.
Yeah. The genuine articulate, that I was not ready for that moment, for a few reasons, right? First, Seasons Change is the song we're talking about, Kay, the last song.
Yes.
Uh, on that, he doesn't really change his delivery
Yeah.
to soften it. So he's just like, said he had a boo boo.
He's like aggressively mumbling about how he's kissing his child's boo-boo.
Right, right. And I was like, wow, that's jarring. And then like to leave like that 30 seconds at the end to just play with the kid.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That was the last thing you hear on the album is just playing with his kid. Like that was something I didn't expect from someone with such a lineage in hard head ass rap music.
I mean, I'm just gonna assume that having a kid changes you in that way where it doesn't matter if you're corny as long as you're creating memories with and for your child.
Right.
Which, like I said, it's like it's not like I was the rap, the angry rap fan from De La Soul's Dead, like, man, this is whack. He's talking about his kid. I can't relate to that. I want to hear him selling about, like that wasn't me.
Right.
I like video actually. That was the first time I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's cute. Then I heard it on the album and I was like, okay, I don't really need to hear this a third time. But like I respect it.
I love it every time. Well, and Kay, yes, I have a kid, and so I am very soft inside. But I will the I love that song because of how it contrasts a lot of the album.
Yeah. It is, you know what? I think like it's an interesting album to me because if you look at the guests that he has, it's not necessarily my favorite people that Al works with. So it was with a notable exception, not everyone. Like with Havoc, obviously P's not around anymore. I'm glad that Havoc gets a shout, but he's not rapping on the level that used to get on a Mobb Deep album. And I really like the Conway and Larry June tracks. Those ones were my two favorites off that project.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Alan Conway, just like Derringer and Conway, is pretty much the ideal case for Conway, in my opinion. He just sounds great over those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, which did you prefer? The heads I win, tails you lose, or the genuine articulate?
Heads I win, tails I lose.
You know, you lose, yeah. It's
I just thought that was more. I thought that in terms of production wise, I think Alchemist, like his strength is he's able to create a mood. He's able to create like these musical environments. Uh, because he's not like I. It's very, how do I say it? He's not like most producers, I would say. I
mm,
think his production feels very different to me than other people's production. So I think what Alchemist does is he's great at creating a mood, creating this environment, and I feel like he did that more on Heads I Win.
yeah, I think that maybe that's the best to return to our restaurant analogy, okay?
Yeah.
With producers, right? It's not just making the food, it's the ambiance.
Yes, and
Right?
ambiance. I like that one. I think that's the word to.
And so even when because I my critique of Al as a producer has always been that he gets away with a lot of sleepy shit that nobody remembers.
Mhm.
Nobody remembers that Lulu happened. Nobody remembers this. Just
Oh, I remember the Lulu happened. That was like my pandemic album, though.
there's countless projects that are just like
Especially compared to the Conway albums that came after, like all the ones that have been coming out recently, where he's with like he's with some rant, like no offense, it's not even that like they can't be good because I do want to hear Conway and Ransom, and I do want to hear
yeah.
Conway and 38 Special, and I do want to hear all of these, but it feels like they're being done in order to expedite product to the marketplace,
Yeah.
which is not a feeling that I got with Lulu. And I get it. Like this man's a working musician, he needs to get stuff out. I'm not dissing it. I'm saying it always does feel like there's a little bit more craft in an out product. Like he's got it, like he's got the quality control down. The sleepiness I get though, because he does a lot of slow tempos, a lot of muted drums,
Yeah,
like that to me is a reasonable counterpoint.
So like a bad alchemist beat just ceases to exist. It's
I
not
mean,
offensive. It just it fades away completely and it's gone. So like, but to the restaurant analogy, okay, even when you go to your favorite restaurant with the best ambiance, even when the food is fine and not great, you're still in the coolest place.
right.
So like
Exactly.
it's that's the advantage of what you were talking about with the ambiance of Alchemist. Is like it if you put beat to beat like the technicalities of what Alchemist does with some other producers, they might match him, but ambiance wise, they usually don't.
No,
yeah, yeah.
I mean his beats feel very. It's almost like static, and I mean I don't mean static in like a negative way, but it does really feel like it feels like a physical space. Like when you turn on the Alchemist beat, you're stepping into a room.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so when he does it well, you're really like in the ambience of that room. But when it's not when it's not done so well, it almost can feel like a little bit like repetitive in a way.
Which I think is one of the things about Oh No. Oh No is almost as a producer, he's like the opposite of what you described. Like
Hmm.
I think Oh No supercharges his environment wherever
Yeah,
he goes as a producer.
He's more rhythm centric. Like he's someone like even if he's using dusty breaks, he'll like foreground his drums a little bit more. It'll be less of a mood piece
Yeah.
and more of a like funky, in the tradition of funk and soul and Afrobeat and all that shit. Like he'll foreground that. Like, he's also very, I mean, they're both worldly with their samples. Like I think Ono had like Doctor's Nose, Ethiopian, and Alchemist has had Israeli Salad, where he used a bunch of Middle Eastern records.
Yep.
Like they both touched on that. I think when they get together, it allows them to indulge in their nerdy side, like with someone who's gonna get it. Like
Mhm.
it's to me, it's pretty clear that Gangrene happened after J-Lib, where they were like, "Yo,
Yeah.
why don't we do that?" And it was like, "Yeah." Like I'm sure Ono was just like happy, unfortunately, like Madlib kind of overshadows Ono, which is not really fair because if Ono was just someone who didn't know Madlib, he'd still be an insane producer. It's just like, it's the Jermaine Jackson situation.
Well, but the difference is, I don't think, because obviously that, really just completely overshadowed Jermaine Jackson's talent. I
For
think,
sure.
I think, oh no, gets a certain amount of freedom because there's no expectations. Like, this is
Mm,
a post first take world
yeah.
where if you're the big name, that means we yell at you all the time, right?
Well, the cool
If you're
thing
the
with the
name on the
Oxford
top,
scene, they
we yell at
they
you all
had
the time.
other people too, because they had Can Kick. I think Declaim at some point was even making some beats. Like there's a bunch of people, DJ Rome, like all of those guys. Like I always say that some of my favorite shit is like listening to the old Alcoholics and all of the stuff that came out later out of Oxford, all those like reissue tapes they made in 1998 in somebody's basement.
Right.
And I feel that a lot of the times Gangrene is gesturing towards that, towards like an era of rap where you weren't concerned with an audience outside of like dudes in the basement at a local hip hop show that were into that raw shit. And obviously, like, that's not where they are now, but by like using kind of like styles and signifiers that point towards that, they can recapture it, even though, they're grown men now.
Yep. And I think, like, and this is, I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I like Ono's recent work better than Madlib's recent work. Like,
I think that's fair.
I like, I love the Elzai album from last year. Like, Ono is still cracking, and yeah, and I don't think Madlib really is. At
He
this point.
doesn't put, I mean, he doesn't put out nearly as much music. It's definitely different. He's in a different space, which I still appreciate. But, I mean, everybody, and, you can have a hot streak at any time. Most people only have one.
Right.
For me, it's just like when Madlib had his, from from the first Quasimodo through like the whole Madlib, it wasn't Beat Club, but Medicine Show. That was kind of, that was a run. That was like a
Right.
RZA
Oh yeah.
run, rock run.
Crazy.
That was a primo 94 to 92 to like 99 run.
Yeah. And I don't know these people, but I've always gotten the impression that Ono would not have enjoyed the spotlight that Madlib had.
Which is crazy because Madlib clearly doesn't enjoy the spotlight, period. Like the fact that Ono would be the shy one out of the two when Madlib is so like, he's the opposite of Lil Jon.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think Ono really enjoys being able to do weird shit and surprise people and have a ball, and the expectations just aren't the same. And that's why I just always I love Ono. I love whatever he does.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I
I
mean, from the first, I still remember I never checked out. I should check this out after, but I remember when the first Don't Know album came out on Stone's Throw, they had a contest if you could figure out the sample in the lead single. And I really wanted to know that shit, but I had no idea what it was. They're like, oh, it's from an old NES game. I think they said that to throw people off the scent, but who knows? I might check that out now.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But no, it's and oh no, so oh no, yes, is a daring producer, but also a daring rapper. He does a lot of interesting stuff and kind of vocal shifts and changes for different things, and like I've really enjoyed his rapping since The Professionals, the album he did with Madlib. Um, I really like Oh No as a rapper. So my and I want to get your thought on this, SonRaw. My favorite Gangrene album is You Disgust Me.
Yes, same.
Okay.
Uh, with um with apologies to ayahuasca and vodka, because I also really like that one. It's not it's difficult, but those two are neck and neck.
You Disgust Me just felt like the kind of perfection of what they were trying to do. Like, oh, this is exactly what you guys have been trying going for. Um, and so yeah, heads I win, tails you lose is I don't think as good as You Disgust Me, but it's rapping for real. It's bars on bars.
I,
Um,
I keep I mean, it's interesting because I don't even know if it counts as a Gangrene album,
that's
but that
fair.
Greenberg one I mentioned earlier also, just because like I just remember the feeling after Marsburg came out in 2010, and I wanted more music like that, but it didn't really exist. I wasn't on to Ka at that point yet, like
Right.
wasn't fully aware. So when that Greenberg EP dropped, and I was like, there all three of them were rapping over that type of beat, and they were adapting to what Marcy was doing. That was really exciting for me.
Right. Yeah. No, a good one. Yeah, but this one is
Also, never thought there would be a rap album called Greenberg with a
Greenberg was
Jewish
great.
background. That was extremely surprising to me.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, yeah, it's you didn't did either of you think that Heads I Win Tails You Lose was too long in terms of or did you feel it was just right?
Mm, I don't think the length was the issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that it's a five mic life changing album,
No.
but I also don't need it to be.
Right.
Like, listen to, I've listened to enough rap music in my life where I just appreciate just a good rap album that's like maybe not shooting for the stars, but it's also not fucking up in doing so.
Mm.
Like it usually happens to me on like the more thugged out side where it's like, I know I mentioned those Conway albums earlier, but like I like a normal 3.5 Mike Conway album. I might not listen to it for the rest of my life. I might only listen to it until the next one.
Right.
That has, a space in my life because I come from the DJ Clue tape era.
Yeah. Okay.
Have a bunch of hot rap tracks and it would tide you over until the next bunch of hot rap tracks. And like at the time that those things were coming out, we were all like, man, what happened to albums? Albums used to be cohesive and like we had a point. Nowadays, we get a lot of cohesive, high concept rap albums, but we maybe don't get just those heat packs with a bunch of random rap songs anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel that like a lot of what Al, has done this year, it falls into that category. So I'm not trying to damn it with faint praise. It's more like it serves a niche that like Al can do that because he knows hip hop like the back of his hand.
Right.
He
Right.
knows that he doesn't always have to do too much. And he like might do a little bit more on heads I win, tails you lose, and he might like not do as much on another project. He might, fall back rapping or whatnot, but he's good at figuring out what a project needs to be its best self.
It's such a good point, SonRaw. Thinking about last week, Kay, we had our backwoods fantasy draft. Uh, and our ears have heard so much what you said, high concept, avant-garde rap music, right? That it's almost like the A24 universe, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
Like and we're just like when people are like, where did the R-rated comedies go? We're like, it's gone, dog. Like it's about that A24. So like we're tuned in to how to listen to A24 rap, right? We know how to plug into this concept and follow the journey and map out the high moments, but we've lost the ability to just kind of rock our heads to people doing it really well.
I mean, that's interesting. I 100, first of all, I love the
Mm.
A24 comparison. I wouldn't have thought about that, but that's like spot on because it's such an aesthetic in itself. Um, yeah, I do think that sometime, I mean, we're getting it's semi-related because Al works with
Right.
Lee Woods quite a lot. In fact, I wish that I wish that the Genuine Articulate would have had an Arm and Hammer track. When I said he wasn't working with some of my favorites, that would have been some people that I would have wanted to see on there actually.
Right.
But I do know that there's some backwoods fans that maybe have come to hip hop from a through a different route that I would have. I DJ'd for years and I was into like dance hall and R&B and like UK stuff. So I have like this very rhythmic, very, I'm coming at it from that perspective. Whereas if you're coming at Arm and Hammer from a noise background or More Mother's poetry background, or because you like Woods's post-colonial references, which are all valid ways to engage with the music,
Right.
might, you know, they're probably getting stuff out of it that I'm not, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. You might think it's limited because it doesn't possess what you're looking for. Right.
I mean, I don't for the record, I don't think that, I mean, certainly in the case of Woods and Arm and Hammer and the Cavalier album this year, those are all, everything they've done recently has been just hitting. So I've got,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I might not be the person who will listen the most to that, like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Oxgay album, like the
Yeah.
Scandinavian
Yeah.
jazz, the Scandinavian experimental jazz. I might be the guy listening to the Conway album instead of that. And it's no shots. It's like,
No.
I love that the music and the scene is big enough to accommodate all those things, and LL Cool J and Estee Nack and, E40 still rapping and whatnot. Like, I love that hip hop is big enough now.
I mean, it's and my equivalent of that's probably that Mavi album, like
Yeah.
where like people read people online being like, man, like the more I listen to this, the better it gets. I'm like, I'll bet, but I'm not sure I can do the more. Like it's very
Yeah.
sad. I'm not sure I can do a bunch of listens to get to where I need to be with it. It's probably gonna do something else.
I'm gonna give you a little preview of the next. I'm running a column right now on Passionate Weiss called "No Country for Old Men," and it's a look at kind of being like, I turned 40 this year, so you start to take stock of your life, and like it's a little bit, people they think it's a little wild to be writing about popular music at 40. They're like, oh, how are you engaging with this in this way? And the next edition that I want to write about is, I don't think that music critics and a lot of people really know what they want out of hip hop right now.
Oh,
And
that's
the
a real point.
thing that they can agree on is that kind of post Earl, post Mike, post Mavi, Navy Blue, like sensitive young man rap. Like that's the only politically safe but aesthetically daring thing that won't piss anybody off, but it's like good enough. So it's like, and it's not to take anything away from those artists as individuals by flattening them as a group, but you can also tell that that's the only thing that like people want to stick out their neck for in saying, hey, this is great new rap. Like
Right.
other, you have to have individual people. Shout out Dylan Green, shout out like
Yep.
Jeff Weiss, obviously. Sticking their neck for individuals, but like as on a collective level, people are like, we don't want these problematic rappers. We don't want to Macklemore it. What can we even like in rap music anymore? And that's kind of what they landed on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they started talking about Alchemist as a potential Zionist.
I mean, I'm gonna make a purposeful point to just not talk about that, because there's no way to talk about that without someone wanting to kill you. And like, my answers are gonna disappoint everybody on all sides because
Right.
I'm centrist as fuck. So I'm just gonna move away from that one to not.
Just baby.
Yep.
No, I'm just
War is bad. Peace in the Middle East. That's all I gotta say. Peace.
boom.
Not even a ceasefire, just peace.
I just don't, and I haven't seen the smoking gun yet of him saying this. So like, that's
No, people are on the internet now. It's like let me put it this way, like I'm not the world's biggest Drake fan,
Right.
but there's absolutely no proof that the man is a pedophile. But people will still say that shit on the internet until it sticks to you.
Right.
I don't think that like you can take internet hating has left the realm of reality like a couple of years ago. Like Beyonce and Jay-Z are sacrificing babies because they're Illuminati, and like it's in. If you look at the darkest corner of like rap rumor mills, it's like you wonder like what people are smoking and shit. And then you get stuff like Diddy where you're like, they couldn't even invent that shit, and it was all true.
Yeah. Kay, which celebrity do you drag the most on social media?
I mean, I don't really engage with social media like that. I mean, I haven't been a big fan of Drake this year, and not because of necessarily the extracurriculars or alleged extracurriculars. It's more of, the idea of him and what he stands for in the music industry.
I never went after Drake, but I am blocked by Paul Shear. So that's my claim to fame.
We're all
I mean, I think nowadays, I think I think, you know, I think the rappers nowadays are businessmen.
Mm-hmm.
I think when they come into the game, they're viewing it from a business angle. And so they're trying to create a product in order to make a living.
Well, it gets tough, it gets tangled because there was I don't know if we're on a tangent here, but I'm embracing it. Um, there's there was an there's a show called On the Radar, and they do freestyles. Okay.
Okay.
And Akai Solo did one, and people started going off on it, right? And like anything Tay's grip, right? With the people be
What
like,
was their problem with it?
well, they were like, "This is the worst rapping I've ever heard."
Oh, because they were mainstream and they never heard his
It's
style.
similar to the, to Lungs and Fick, and
Yeah,
like the reactions they get when they post freestyles. People don't listen to that kind of rapping, right? It's not traditional stylistically. So when they see it, like these are the guys who watched Drake and Central C freestyle. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, if we were in 1988 or whatever, those people would not be listening to hip hop. Those would be the Whitney Houston. And
right.
I'm naming good artists here, but they would be into like your Princes, your Michael Jacksons, your Janet Jacksons, your Whitney Houstons.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be listening to Ultramagnetic in 88 or Kane in 88.
Yep. So I mean, and I mentioned this, Kay, to say that like, so that goes into the environment. That discussion happens. Akai Solo's kind of a weird dude. He's kind of a prickly dude, right? So like people are saying shit to him. People are saying shit like even compliments on the internet are mean as fuck, right? So like the guy who tried to call him be like, I've heard all your stuff, and this freestyle is actually the best thing you've ever done. And Akai Solo was like, well, then you don't know my stuff, and fuck you, don't listen to my shit. Like he was, so if you are a naturally prickly person or just a different kind of person, um, you have to engage with the market and your product and then try and fit your personality into it. And because
I can say for the fact that if you don't, like, as someone, I'm French Canadian Jewish rap fan,
right,
I don't fit into like easily categorizable like identity groups. The most you can say is like I'm a pretty like boringly standard like white guy rap fan, but no one's gonna, not gonna be any politicians ever that are gonna be campaigning for the vote of people like me.
right.
Like I fall in between those cracks, and that's fine because I embrace being different. I embrace being me. It's always been about that for me. But there's certain sections of the internet where people are going to react to you based on the most superficial levels of your identity. And I mean, for sure, you know, I can definitely say that it's worse for people that have more marginalized identities with me. I'm not like putting myself up as a martyr in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying, even from my relatively safe perch, I can tell that like I don't always engage in certain online spaces. So when you're an artist, like having worked with lyricists specifically, people that use their voice in that way, you tend to be sensitive to the world. You receive the world fully and you experience it in like an emotional level. So that shit's got to be torture for people like that. Because even as someone who, like, you know, if you tell me some slick shit on the internet, I'm gonna tell you to go suck your mom and that's it. And I'm gonna move on with my life.
Right.
But if you take that shit to heart, it must really suck.
Yeah, I mean, and it's some of the people that are in these positions are in these positions because they fought their way to that position,
Yeah.
right? So if you fought your way to that position and then you have a bunch of like really off base internet gangsters like coming at you, you're I can see how the instinct is to fight back and
I'm gonna
clobber
take
them.
this tangent even further out of where we were. That one pop girl, Chapel Roan or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
I had never heard her music. All I heard was her complaining about shit. And I was just like, who the fuck are you? I've never even heard your tunes. All I hear is that you're upset about like every news headline is about you being upset about something.
Mhm.
And then like I found out that she like stopped her tour for her mental health. And I was like, oh shit, you worked your whole life because you like singing and you like making things and you like getting your emotions out through your art because that's who you are as a person. And like
Yeah.
the system had you thinking that you should do that and become famous because that's how you lead a worthwhile life. And then you find out that you are absolutely not the kind of person who should be famous because it doesn't work well with your personality and your characters and your views. I stopped being like kind of like being like, man, who is this girl? And started being like, oh, I kind of feel bad for you because you didn't know what this was going to be. And that's not really your fault. Like, I'm not going to blame you for not being good at being famous when like everyone has told me that being famous is kind of terrible unless you have like a psychotic personality that's addicted to that shit.
And it's wild because it's not the nobody like in Hollywood, actors and actresses just drop off the map for years. And it's
Yeah.
cool. Like nobody's like, where's Ava Mendes? Fuck. Like everybody's fine with that she's out there
That's
raising her
what
son.
his next movie is at the premiere of his current movie. Yo, what you got next?
Right. I mean, it's no everybody's fine with like, it faded away and the machine kept going and it was fine, you know. In hip hop the pressure's a little bit different. But in
We gotta
terms of
we gotta drop twice a year now.
right, right. And in terms of Alchemist, this twice a year is important because it's establishing rapper Alchemist.
Yes.
So he has building to do with rapper Alchemist.
I mean, it's interesting because even when I think of Al dropping the other album he put out, he wasn't rapping on, but he did the big hit album with Hit Boy.
Hit Boy.
I was gonna
Hit
talk
Boy
to you about
Fat.
that. I know you love that.
I love that album. I really, that is my favorite Alchemist thing this year because it's like a West Coast. I call it the West Coast infamous mob. It's not Mob Deep, but there's nothing wrong with those early infamous mob albums. Or it kind of also reminds me of Group Home a little bit, where like Big Hit is not a technically minded rapper in the way that Alchemist is, for example.
But Big Hit has a story.
Yeah, he spent most of his life in jail and he has a great voice and he can just spit his shit. And I was just like, this is the best thing Hit Boy's ever been involved in. He should just produce his dad. Like his dad's it.
Yeah. No,
He
you
had his sister on that track. Like Al had his kid on a track, but Hit Boy put his dad and his sister on the track.
you recommended that album, and I was like, whatever, I'll listen to it. And I was like, damn, this is pretty good. Like I was into it. It's
That
a
one fell
good
through the
album.
cracks because he puts out a lot of, well, I mean, also let's be real. Big Hit has like a little bit of a ceiling. Like He's a gangster rap fan's gangster rapper. Like,
Oh, well, that's the good point. Hit Boy also raps and also wants people to care about his rapping,
and he
but
does with Alchemist a lot. They're homies too.
Yeah.
I don't think Hit Boy is nearly as interesting as a rapper as Alchemist is.
I
Um,
mean, yeah, I mean, like as a rapper and as a producer.
right. I mean, to me, Hit Boy is still somebody like I don't know. Rapping is so weird, man, because Hit Boy is not necessarily a bad rapper on paper,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
He raps, he carries it through, but rapping is about being interesting. And
all
Hit
right, let me put it
not
this way. I think on Gangrene, Oh No is the better rapper.
sure.
I think when Hit Boy and Alchemist rap, Al is the better rapper.
Oh yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I'm totally with you on that. And I think the Genuine Articulate might be my favorite of these two
Hmm.
because of the shifts that it has, like the different moods. Everybody's favorite uncle is such a cool song. Um that whole run really uh probably I would say Scientology through Diego Maradona where it's like Scientology with Havoc, and that makes sense. Everybody's favorite uncle is super dope. And then the Diego Maradona shin bone stuff.
Yep.
Like it's he starts to really hit you with lines that you don't expect. Like, oh wow, what? And jokes and just personality, you know, which is something that he's gonna have to embrace if rapper Alchemist is gonna grow.
I think, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's interesting because he was putting stuff like Fly the Friendly Skies. He was putting out all these little EPs
Yeah.
of tracks he produced, and I feel like this was him kind of dipping the toes. Like, what if I did that, but I rapped on it?
Mm. Yeah, no, which makes like those albums that he put where it would be like 6 songs and it'd be a bunch of underground people. I always felt like those were him kind of uh walking into the underground as an ice cream place and getting little samples, flavor samples of all the different stuff. Let me get in a Kai solo and see how it takes. Let me get some and navy blue. Give me a navy blue sample, and like just to see who he'd be interested in. I've always said that if I the Alchemist project I want is with Quelle Chris.
That would be fire, especially after having. I mean, I'd love to hear Alchemist and Quelle Chris do like a Gangrene kind of thing where like Quelle would produce as well.
Oh my God, that would be so fun.
Quelle belongs like that's a dude where you could have that like is he a producer rapper or is he a rapping producer?
Right.
He might land on either side of he's ill at both.
And the distinction, because I remember I did ask this question to Brain Orchestra, right? Are you a rap producer, a producer rapper? And he said, I started making beats so that I would have beats to rap. And
Yeah, to me, makes him a
that
rapper.
that's the definition of
Yeah,
the rapper producer,
yeah.
right? If you started making beats so you wouldn't have to pay somebody for beats, like I get it, you're a rapper.
I mean, and the fact that his beats are so ill because I was listening to that Death Tape 2 that him and Cav put out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That shit is it's almost like an under like we were talking about mixtapes earlier. It has
Oh,
that energy.
it's way better than the first one, I think. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm with
First
you.
one didn't really hit me like that, but it could
Yeah.
also be that like 2024 was the year that I really like got familiar with Cav's game because of the Backwoods album.
Yeah, love it. So yeah, what are your thoughts on all this? Where are you at with it with the
In
Alchemist?
regards to what?
The Alchemist situation with his rapping, with runs of interesting songs, or What do
I
you?
mean, to me, he doesn't stand out as a rapper per
Yeah,
se. I think it's almost, to me it feels like it's like a side project.
yeah.
But like, to go back to what I was saying, what we were talking about with Nerd, like he's produced so much stuff this year. Like he's created so many things. I mean, in terms of prolificness, I mean, this is probably one of the most prolific years. I mean, I can think of. It seems like he's almost released something every week. Something that he's been associated with has been released. I feel like.
So,
Uh,
so do you want more from Rapper Alchemist, or are you done? Are you good with Rapper Alchemist?
I mean, if it's in his heart, he should. I mean, what I'm saying is he's done enough for hip hop this year that if he wants to do, like, go on like a side quest and release it, he should be able to do that. Like, it's very difficult for me. I guess the way to put it is, it's very difficult for me to rate his rapping when he's done so much and contributed so much elsewhere.
And that was one of my first concerns when I heard people complimenting his rapping is I don't want to do a ceremonial you're a great rapper because of your reputation as a producer. That feels I don't know, that feels insincere, right? Like
Yeah.
we want to be able to say you're dope or keep trying, right? Like we want to be able to keep it real with each other.
Right.
Um
Right. I mean, as I said, this is like a side hustle. He doesn't need to rap. He could not rap again for the rest of his life and be set.
yeah, but
So
to
this is just a side. It's difficult to rate someone's, like, like their side quest. Like, I think he's really doing this for him.
right.
And I really think, like you said, working with Larry June, I think working with Hit Boy, it seemed him and Hit Boy had a chemistry, like just like him and Larry June. So I think being around these guys, I think he's just like, screw it. Like, I've got some extra time. Like, let me just play around. Let me have fun and do something for me.
Right. And I maybe the because you can hear the joy he's having doing it, right? He's
Yeah.
enjoying this shit. But maybe I think the most promising element of it for me, because for me, me, I'm trying to think of the ceiling. Where's the ceiling here? Right. Um, the indication for me is that he's on a track with Boldy James on this, doesn't get blown out of the water, right? He's on a track with Conway. He certainly doesn't win the track, but he stands up. Like so if you can be on a track with the level of MCs that he's with, Havoc, Evidence, and stand with them, yeah, keep doing it. Keep pursuing it. Like,
Mm.
yeah, so that
100%.
makes sense for me. Yeah, and SonRaw, I was thinking about the where he's at in terms of delivery.
Yeah.
And my thought is that he's kind of a combination of Evidence and Havoc is as a rapper right now.
I would have probably said part rock Marciano, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of like Large Professor.
Ooh, okay.
In the sense that, like, clearly an incredible producer, but stepping up the rapping, where necessary, and with that kind of old school flair, just because Owl is from that era. Um, in terms of hearing more of him rapping, like, I'd be cool with it. There are
Mhm.
other things that I would like to hear more of before that.
Yeah.
I think there should be a non-pandemic Alchemist Arm& and Hammer album.
Ooh.
I want to hear another Boldy album. I want to hear a real Conway and West album by Alchemist. I really like the, like, retro throwback one he threw up. Like, they did They did the Conway and West Part 2, but it was all older tracks.
Yeah.
But I want to hear the real one. That was like kind of a rumor, but I don't know if it's gonna happen or not.
Didn't didn't you already get a Big Sean Alchemist album?
They're working on it.
Did
think.
it? Yeah, I haven't heard it if they did.
Was Better Me Than You Alchemist or no?
I mean, I think he had a track. I know he had the single that he did with
Yeah,
Big Sean.
exactly.
Oh, so it
Uh,
wasn't the full album yet. Okay.
no, but they said that. But from what I heard, they're working on. They're working on a
Yeah,
project.
good deal. That's the one. So like, yeah, I would love I would love a Shrapnel Alchemist album. You know,
That'd be
I would love like I would love for him to dig into the next level of people. Because Alchemist did that, man. Alchemist, you know, did Covert Coup, which changed my whole shit. Right?
yeah.
Like, so he's tuned in, and I would love for him to dig to the next level of Beyond Armand Hammer to really start spotlighting some interesting folks. Um, you know,
It would be interesting just because he's the one guy that J. Cole or ASAP Rocky call,
Mhm.
and he's also tapped into that world a little
right,
bit.
right.
There's not too many people who could have a foot on in
Yeah,
both those ponds.
Yeah,
it's with
why
Kent.
not do an Aesop Rocky album and then do a Fat Ray album?
Right.
Yeah.
Do
I know he's working with Cole.
Yep.
I mean, I think he's working. The rumors working with Kendrick. Well, I mean, Kendrick had Meet the Grams, which was with him. I mean, he's just that's what I mean. He's just everywhere now,
Yep.
like
He is.
everywhere.
Yeah. No.
I liked how when Meet the Grams came up, Alchemist didn't post anything about it except like a tense teeth emoji and a video of him making the beat. It's like,
Right.
I'm not getting involved in any of this other than to say my beat is fire. Because I mean, not to get too sidetracked again, but when that beat came out, I was almost like, this is too much. This is a creepy thing to say about another man. Like, and then the very next day he dropped Not Like Us, which was so fun
Yeah.
that it automatically papered over what I think could have
Yep.
been a misstep. And it was like, oh no, you won because this is the bop, this is the jam.
Yeah. The
But
combination of those two is what wins, right?
yeah, just like us is what wins. Like, but I remember the night before because I was out of the hospital at that point. I was dealing with some shit and I couldn't sleep. And I went
Oh
to bed
man.
and I woke up in the middle of the night and Meet the Grams was there. And I was like, oh, just listen to this real quick. And I was like, some creepy shit to say about another human being, bro. This is weird.
Yep.
Like, you're right. You're 100% on point. But it's weird that you said it.
Yeah. 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 No.
Whereas if, like, you make fun of a guy on a West Coast beat, on a mustard beat like that, like, you won. Like, that's
You
it.
won. You won. I mean, yeah. So it's Alchemist is definitely everywhere, right? He's definitely a part of every conversation,
Mhm.
and I think you can hear how much fun he has doing this rapping, and that he's
Yes.
doing new things with it. And as long as those
Yeah.
two things are true, go for it, man.
Yeah.
Like what SonRaw said earlier is really critical. Like people who are really good at this, uh, but not the best, should still have their room to breathe,
Yeah.
right? It's one of the things I'm still trying to teach my son about hip hop, right? When he got like he heard Illmatic and he got really into Illmatic, and from then on I'd be like, you should listen to this guy, and he'd be like, is he better than Nas?
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, bro. Like, it's not, you're not going to be able to enjoy this stuff if you are screen printing Nas on top of everything that you're
You
listening
can't
to.
let Kind of Blue and A Love Supreme be your only two jazz albums.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
They're the best
exactly.
jazz albums, but there's so much more if you accept that there's great things that aren't those things.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Absolutely. The yeah. It's so I think it's the kind of rap that we like that solid B grade or B plus grade, like hard head ass rap. That's I need that some days, you know. So ultimately, my thing is I applaud the year Alchemist has had in rapping. Um, I love the cover of Heads I Win, Tails You Lose.
Yes.
What an incredible cover. Um,
That was some art. That was like in a sea of bad AI rap art. That was dope to see.
yeah, yeah. No, I dig it. Any other thoughts on this, Kay?
No.
Okay. If you feel like SonRaw is part of a marginalized group within hip hop, or if you don't, email K Diggy.
Oh, geez. Don't email
I'll
me,
make sure
man.
I forward
Email
those emails to
K
you guys.
Diggy vivacious at yahoo.com. Um, he will he's gonna read all of them. But I am ready for recommendation corner. I got some fun stuff
Mhm.
to talk about. We got a friggin' oh man. I was just someone told me that Casual had an album this year.
Oh,
And I was like, Casual had an album this year? And it came out September 10th. It's called Fights Over Egypt.
okay.
And it's fucking cool. So it totally is one of those very smart discussions of blackness and Egyptian history and misinformation and religious misinformation. And I knew it was going to be that when it came in, but I also know Casual is silly as fuck and a fire breathing dragon of an MC. So I'm like, how's all that going to coexist? Somehow it does. And it does perfectly. Like it's a goofy album, it's a raw ass rap album, and it's also a very thoughtful album um, about the place of Egypt um, in black culture and history. It's cool. I think it's really cool.
Nope.
$7 on Bandcamp, you know? Um, might as well rock on that. There's a new um there's a new Mutant Academy album.
Yes, I need to check that.
I just checked it today. It is wonderful. It's called Keep Holly Alive. Um, Everything they do is so consistent and it's so good. That it's just really cool. So, and I'm really glad that they are still maintaining the high bar they have. You know what I mean? Um, the third one is a pre-order. Mutant Academy is Fly Anakin, Henny Low, all the yeah, all these legendary VA cats. So DMV situation. The third one, former guest of the show, K. Actually, two former guests combining for a super album happens all the time. Uh,
Mm.
okay, Nice and Andrew have a new album coming out,
Okay.
All right.
and it's called Talking to My Dogs, and it's really fucking cool. Uh, Andrew's always doing something different producer wise every album, and this is very different. I won't give it away, but and he's so good. Okay, Nice is so good at pulling apart the sections of his mental health in a way that doesn't feel heavy somehow. It's 9 songs. It's really dope. Really dope. Yeah. So those are gonna be my three. Also, Kay, have you heard These Sacred Souls?
No.
Dog. They
These
they
cigarettes.
came out with a new album, and it's fucking great. The harmonies are beautiful. It's very like it's I guess it fits into that Chicano soul category that we've been talking about so much. So came out October 4th. It's called Got a Story to Tell. Yeah. Oh man, so fucking cool. And it's THEE, the Sacred Souls. So
Okay.
good deal. Good deal. So yeah. What do you SonRaw, what are you listening to?
Recently, I like the new Este Nac Bon Hueso. Systematically, we were never free. I really liked Stone Temple Pyrex that he dropped with Future Wave earlier this year.
Yep.
This feels very much a piece of that. He's clearly a man who knows what he wants to rap on and what he sounds good on, which is kind of soulful, kind of Black Sabbathy,
Right.
stuff with like a lot of drum fills, which is popular right now, but he sounds better doing it than most of these rappers. So I will default to him.
Mm.
I like the new Stove God, Stop Calling Me, I'm Cooking Side A.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
hoping
good.
he drops Side B
Yeah.
because it's frustrating that it's not quite long enough to count as an album to me. But I really like how he kind of, I mean, I love like Stove God in the sense that like I had a tweet earlier this month, and I said like most rappers will rap about cocaine with like, "Yo, I'm sorry I've had to do this to my community, but I was strapped for cash and in an unfortunate living situation.
Right.
It had a negative impact. I was addicted to fast money." And meanwhile, Stove God is saying, "I will be in Valhalla for what I did with the wrist." He just takes it to this weird
Yep.
fetishizing level where it's like he feels like he raps about cooking crack in a way where you feel that like the only thing stopping him from still doing it is that it's illegal. He would want to do that, which is, by doing that, like by inflating it to that level of parody, you're making people think about the process because that's not a normal thing you say. But it's also just really fun in the same way that like a Clips album or a Ray and Ghost is. He's gonna be on the next Clips album, which I'm sure is gonna
Oh, we
be
should. Yeah. I
like
mean,
he's officially on there, and I was like, "Yo, this is gonna be crazy."
he he raps about cocaine as intensely as Elucid raps about sex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, Also, this little underground artist and this little unknown producer, LL Cool J and Q-Tip with the four.
Woo! The
Uh,
Force.
I don't know if you're up on them, but
Oh,
that's a real heater.
Force.
Yeah, but for real, I was so happily surprised
Oh, I love that.
at how great, like not good,
Yeah.
great that album is. That made me genuinely happy just
Yeah.
to hear. Like I was just so happy as a fan that it was that good.
I come back to that album a lot. It has like an 8 or 9 song run that's just
Yeah.
fucking great. Like
Even the Eminem, I was so ready to hate the Eminem track, and I was like, it's fine. I don't even hate it. It
I was
just
explaining it to my
does what
son. I love that song. I was explaining it to my son. I was like, "Do you know why I love it? Because LL Cool J is like, I want Eminem on my album, and I want him on an Eminem beat,
Yeah.
and then I want to fucking destroy him on
Yes.
an Eminem beat." And that's exactly what happened. He just destroys him. He's like, you know what? I'll go first. You
Yep.
know, and he just fucking goes first and destroys it. And Eminem comes in just clunky. But it's great. I love that because that's just the audaciousness of LL being like, no, I'll spot you the home court. I'll spot you everything. Like, don't worry about it. I'm still gonna eat your lunch.
So those albums, New Ka, obviously great, and shout out Fick and Lungs, Carrot Season, out now, POW Records. Those are the homies. Yeah, they're fucking great. Like not Fick, like I don't know Fick and Lungs. I mean, POW Records is the homies. Just to be clear, like I'm not faking.
Yeah. No, you've said you're friends with Fick and Lungs for your whole life. I
Yes,
appreciate it.
I've known them from the day they were born.
From the day they were little babies. I would so Kay, I don't know if you we dropped the Ka episode we did
Mhm.
with Dash Lewis and Dylan Green.
Shout out
Just
them.
it
Both.
just went public 3 days ago, and people are loving it, Kay.
Mm. That was a great discussion.
People are into it. It is
Shout
our
out James, shout out both good humans.
highest rated like episode in weeks,
Mm.
4 or 5 weeks. It's just people were just we really hit something there. It was and people are starting to like share the points that they learned on social media. It's really cool.
And you check that out. This was my favorite Ka album in a minute too.
Yeah, we got into all of it. It's a really good discussion.
Well,
I'm really happy that 221 has found a home. Kay, what are you recommending?
I mean, nothing new this week. I did get the only thing that I've been listening to a lot recently is the Michael Kiwanuka, his last album.
Kiwanuka, yeah.
Kiwanuka. I can never pronounce it. Yeah. So I just got back into that. That's about it. I think we got the next couple of weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of great music that comes out.
I will. You know me. I'm a Kiwanuka person.
Yes.
That last album's called Kiwanuka.
Kiwanuka.
The first song, "You Ain't the Problem,"
Yeah.
is one of my favorite first songs probably in the last 10 years.
See,
I listen to it all the time. "You Ain't the Problem" is the shit.
that's what happened. Like because it came out. I got back into it because I was at a bar and it came on the jukebox. You Ain't the Problem. So I was like,
Oh shit!
let me get back. Let me go back to this album, and I really enjoyed it.
You know he's coming out with a new album in November, right?
Yeah.
He's got a single out. Yeah, you can check it out. I'm with it. I'm with it. So yeah, that's what we're doing, and it's great. Like, subscribe, comment. Email your genitals to vivacious@yahoo.com. Yeah, thank you all.
What will tomorrow bring? What will tomorrow